Hello, I'm Christine Rapp, Vice President of Strategy for the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute. I'm delighted to welcome Frank Spikker to our 5 in 10 series as CEO of Royal Mosa. Headquartered here in the Netherlands, Mosa has produced ceramic tiles for walls, floors, facades and terraces of private, commercial and public interiors and exteriors for more than 130 years. Prior to Mosa, Frank held leading positions at global sustainability leader Philips. Welcome, Frank. Thank you for joining us today.
Very nice to be here.
Frank, the design and production of tiles bear sustainability challenges and opportunities. Where are the main impacts of ceramic tile production and what are the major levers for circularity?
Before I answer the question directly, I would like to say something about the category of tiles. I think a lot of the opportunities actually lie within that category. So when you look at tiles, it is actually really sturdy materials. It doesn't leave scratches. And at Mosa, we design tiles to last a lifetime. Lasting a lifetime means 40, 50 years easily. And specifically with timeless design, it is actually meant to last that long. Which obviously in a sort of like circular sustainability context, it's a great benefit from a circularity perspective. It also poses some challenges, obviously. So the main challenges that we see within the category are related to a circular business flow, a business model, because products that have been installed in a building site years ago are not so easy to, first of all, take out of the chain, but also once we get them back, we want to make sure that we can use them again in our raw material flow and in production again. That poses some challenges because where we use healthy materials and we apply all to the standards of cradle to cradle philosophy, not necessarily all the materials that would come back from building sites that are not ours comply to the same sort of standard. So that's a challenge. Another challenge is that we use ovens in our production process. An oven typically gets heated up to 1200 degrees. So that consumes a lot of energy, obviously. And one of the main challenges is also to not only reuse some of the heat that comes, that basically occurs when you're producing, but also to make sure that the production process in itself uses less energy as possible, also that we use the right sort of energy. So those are challenges. At the same time, those are good challenges.
You highlight energy as one of the more intensive impacts of the tile production. Mosa has made significant optimizations to its energy profile in a move towards a more circular model of production. How in general can energy intensive industries prepare themselves for a carbon positive future?
Yeah, it is a major challenge. At the same time, I think taking the challenge on also means that you accept the challenge. I think that's the first step in the process. Then, of course, at the same time, you can easily say like, well, this is the way it is, and you leave the status quo. But you have to keep thinking out of the box. This is the challenge. How can you find new solutions for that specific challenge? So in our case, where it's like energy intense sort of like industries, obviously, we look at really reusing some of the energy that comes free from the production process in different parts of the production steps prior to the oven, basically. But at the same time, we look at different sort of like energy. It's not so easy because we cannot easily go from gas to electricity in full. But we're looking at different sort of like technologies for the future, like hydrogen and so on. And I think really taking on the challenge, looking at the oven as one of the main challenges and seeing what can we do with new technologies. How can we partially also maybe dematerialize? Because a thinner tile obviously requires not only less materials, but also it doesn't require the same length of the oven into a baking process. So these are the sort of things that we actively look at.
You have been part of guiding the growth of 2 sustainability frontrunners, one in the consumer goods and now in the built environment. In your view, what are 3 of the most important factors in making the transition to a circular business model?
I think first and foremost, I think it's an intrinsic belief that this needs to happen. If you don't have that belief in your entire system, so that's basically inside of the company, but also partially with your business partners externally, then it becomes, I think, almost like an impossible challenge. So I think having that sort of like firm belief also within Mosa for the last so many years already, and I think Mosa has always been sustainably driven, even through the hundreds of years that we now exist. And in the last, say 12 years or so, we really then took Cradle to Cradle on board as to sort of like benchmark for ourselves to just keep pushing the drive. But having that intrinsic belief is crucial. I think it's also that you have more than one person. With one expert, I think you could come a long way, but I think you really have to have this sort of like sustainability drive and improvement drive around sustainability across the entire company. So having one expert is great, but you actually need hundreds of experts across the entire company. And that takes a little bit of time. It takes a belief, but I think it's one of the key success factors. And that was happening in Philips at the time. That's also happening in Mosa. And I think working across the chain with external parties as well. Because specifically when it comes to like circularity, you have to think in different solutions when it comes to business modeling and so on. You can't do it on your own. Sometimes you have to set new standards. You can't do it on your own. And really, I would like to make that strong appeal on the whole industry and in the total value chain to help us or help ourselves as a global community to make that happen.
You said more than 10 years ago, Mosa adopted the Cradle to Cradle certified framework to help move the company and its products to greater sustainability. And today, nearly the entire tile collection is certified at the silver level. Yeah. How has the adoption of Cradle to Cradle helped to shape the way Mosa is doing business?
I think, and I mentioned before, Ray, you have to have that intrinsic belief. But I think Cradle to Cradle as a philosophy helped us with one hand to, it provides a framework. So it provides a framework in terms of what do you need to do in terms of material health? What do you need to do in terms of energy, water stewardship, social fairness, the circularity part of it. And we were sort of like working on those elements already, but the framework very clearly provides you that opportunity to create a path. And it also helps you to communicate both internally as well as externally in terms of like, well, we have adopted the Cradle to Cradle sort of like framework. These are the sort of steps we're going to take, and we have taken already. And as such, I think because it provides that sort of like clear standard, I think it also helps us not only to communicate internally, but also to communicate externally. So it's been a great help to define the path, but it also is a great way to, or helps us in many ways to also set our ambition. So we've been Cradle to Cradle silver certified already for years. We've set ourselves a goal to become Cradle to Cradle gold by the end of the year. And we would like to then take that one step further again in the coming years. And we know exactly what sort of roadmap it takes to actually reach those standards. And that helps us again to operationalize across the organization.
In conclusion, what is the most important lesson Mosa has learned so far on its journey to circularity?
I think the most important lessons are that on one hand, it is Cradle to Cradle on one hand is a challenge, but at the same time, we also feel that it is rewarding and it's good. And specifically that last part, and goes back to that intrinsic belief that if you really want to take care of future generations, you have to start applying in one way or another to world improvements. And we believe that Cradle to Cradle such help us doing that. So the big challenge obviously is there. It's not easy, but at the same time, incredibly rewarding. And it makes actually, it makes us excited. And I think it's also a lot of fun. At the same time, it is almost like too important to just put with one or two experts. You have to just live this through the genes of your organization. And that takes time, of course. It takes a lot of training, development. You really need to make sure that everybody believes that this is an intrinsic belief that comes from the top all the way down to every part of the organization. And we also know, and one of the biggest lessons is also that you can't do it on your own. You have to think in terms of like developing standards, even with your competitors where it's required, even with other industries, with the value chain. So it's definitely not easy. But on the other hand, what I said is like, yeah, it is also exciting. It makes us at least excited, and we're happy that we were on this path.
Well, thank you, Frank, for your leadership and for sharing your valuable insights today in our 5 in 10 interview series.
It was a pleasure.